Yes, we are ready to go. So if you're ready to open the public forum, I can go ahead and call on the first person who has raised their hand.
Well, let me begin with my welcome, okay?
All right, sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. So good morning, everyone. I'm Linda Simmons, and I'm the new TriMet Board President. You know, it's an honor for me not only to be the first woman to lead the TriMet Board of Directors, but also to represent the most diverse board in the agency's history in terms of personal backgrounds, ethnicity, gender, and age. Today, however, we're also welcoming the youngest ever member to serve in the TriMet board. Thomas Kim represents District 1, which covers Washington County, and was formerly held by my predecessor, President Bruce Warner, who has recently retired from the board. Thomas works as corporate counsel for environmental efficiency consultant ClearResult. Thomas is a dreamer, a deferred action for childhood arrivals recipient, and he better known as DACA, and he's also the first DACA status attorney in the state of Oregon. On behalf of myself and the full board, Director Director Kim, I want to welcome you to the board. I don't know if you'd like to say a few comments since this is your first board meeting, but I'll leave that up to you.
Thank you, President Linda, and everyone else. It truly is my honor to be here. I very much look forward to giving all I got here for all of the people in the Metro Portland area, as well as the future of our state. It's truly an honor, especially with new Sam at the helm, Linda, you at the helm. I look forward to partnering with you, learning from you, and hopefully contributing to our operation here. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I assure you, Thomas, we will learn from each other throughout this whole process. So, but thank you for agreeing to join the board. I must say that times ahead present really big challenges for TriMet. This isn't the first time the agencies face challenges, but it's also a time of exciting opportunities as we, as the board, lead the agency through the transportation industry and forward to a better and more sustainable future. In just a moment, I'm going to open the public forum for today's meeting, which is intended to hear from the community on matters that are before the board of directors. If your issues are not within the jurisdiction of the board, TriMet staff is here to listen to your concerns and answer your questions. Those who are scheduled to speak have had the opportunity to sign up to do so 30 minutes before the public hearing opens. The comments will be taken in the order in which you signed up. Written comments have already been that have been received online and through the mail have already been shared with the full board. We allow 45 minutes for the public forum, and if you wish to share, and you'll be limited to 3 minutes. If you wish to share additional information beyond the 3 minutes, you can send it to the board via our email site, which is boardtestimony@trimet.org. So with that, let me begin by having Jeffrey call on the first person who signed up for the public forum. Jeffrey?
Okay, so our first person is Hector Huezo. Uh, Hector, you are unmuted, and I will start the countdown timer once you begin speaking.
Good morning, Hector.
Good morning, and thank you for letting me speak, and congratulations on your new board post, and welcome, Thomas. My name is Hector Huezo. I'm with an organization called Jobs to Move America. We're a national nonprofit organization working to ensure that public investment in infrastructure and transit results in high quality employment and training opportunities, especially for historically underrepresented groups. Today, I'm speaking about one of your agency's largest contractors, bus manufacturer New Flyer, and some of the very concerning information that's been coming out of their southern facilities, in particular their plant in Anniston, Alabama. This past March, the University of Alabama A&M released a report that surveyed workers and identified discrepancies in how workers were treated, annual wages, promotional opportunities, all clearly marked along racial lines and racial disparities, including a finding that white workers earned on average $6,500 more annually than their Black counterparts. Workers also reported fear of being retaliated against for uh, bringing up known product safety concerns. JobSafe of America has partnered with a coalition of organizations in the state and in the communities surrounding the facility that include workers, community leaders, all seeking to address these issues with New Flyer directly. But to this date, the company has refused to meet with us, has deflected in saying that they would address these issues internally, even though we continue to hear from workers that the issues persist. I have circulated a fact sheet that outlines a lot of the concerns and findings from the report, as well as findings from our own discussions with workers themselves. And I'm asking today for the board's assistance in urging the company to address these issues with the community members and organizations that are on the ground in Alabama who want to see their workers and their neighbors and members of their community be respected and be safe on the job. We think that we can achieve this through a community benefits agreement, but New Flyer has not expressed interest in discussing that with us. So we urge you to please ask about these concerns, ask about these questions, and urge them to meet with community members to work to address these issues. We want to see New Flyer become a better company, but we can't do that without proper accountability. So thank you.
Thank you, Hector. We appreciate your information, and I'm sure staff will review what you've suggested and determine if what is appropriate for us to take. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jeffrey, the next.
Actually, with that, we don't have any more requests to speak that have come in.
Well, this is going to be a very quick meeting today now, isn't it? Okay, so then it appears that Hector was our only speaker, and I'll close the public comment portion and open the business meeting. I now officially open the July 28th, 2021 business meeting on for the TriMet Board of Directors. And what we usually do is start with board reports. And so the first board report is with Director Edwards. So I'll invite you, Director Edwards, to provide an update on the Committee on Accessible Transportation that we call a CAT committee. Director Edwards.
Thank you very much, Director Simmons. I certainly appreciate that. And I congratulate you as well on your position of leadership here, and we certainly support you.
Thank you.
The CAT report for today is I hope it's not too long, but I'll just share. Many important issues were discussed at the CAT meeting last week. There was a full agenda, and our chair, Claudia Robertson, opened the meeting with the usual order of business. Nomination was received from the nominating committee for chairperson, which was Jan Campbell. She was nominated and elected without opposition. I briefly reported on the events at TriMet since the last business meeting, which was on June 28th. And I asked a couple of questions, one regarding Reimagining Public Safety Advisory Committee volunteers, and the second one was about the visitation of the Southwest Alder project. The glaring response that I received regarding the Southwest Alder project was that CAT members were not pleased and no longer want to be informed of changes after the fact. They want to be on the planning stage and be on the front end and not be, on the tail end and finding out that something has already happened that they can't do nothing about. It was announced that Rachel Glacier will be the new Executive Director of Transportation beginning August 16th. Tony Clark is the new Assistant Director, and the next meeting for CAT will be in September. They typically take off for August and they don't have a meeting that month. However, the executive committee will be meeting in August. During the CAP member and public comment, concerns were raised regarding continuity of service during severe weather events in summer and winter. It was mentioned that TriMet should function during severe weather events in the summer, as Phoenix, Arizona mass transit functions in severe heat. And I think we all, most of us know that we had some severe weather conditions here. We had that heat wave that caused some problems with service. And it was temporary. It's only a couple of days, but still it was a disruption of our service. So they wanted that to be hopefully addressed so that that doesn't happen again. Pat Williams gave a comprehensive report on the status of safety and security. He shared concerns regarding specific bus lines, 72 and 75. Disruptive passengers was the particular issue and concern. A mental health response team is currently being utilized in Washington County and will eventually be system-wide. There are 12 classes scheduled for training of personnel for identifying and successfully coping with mental, behavioral, and substance influence individuals. There will also be safety and security related lunchtime seminars. And I've asked the staff to inform me of those, and I wanted to also make sure that the board was aware in case they wanted to attend one of those classes as well, because it needs to go through protocol, but at the same time, it's open to the board if they want to attend. Libby Winter and Guy Ben gave a report on the progress of design and engineering regarding the Hollywood Transit Hub. 3 concepts are being considered regarding access. Concerns were raised involved width of the ramp being too narrow and reliability of elevators. Going forward, the preferred concept will be advanced, and CAT will continue to be engaged throughout the process. It was also reported that the City of Portland was sponsoring vacating 42nd Avenue as a thoroughfare south of Halsey. This will pave the way for the improvement that for access. A 213 unit housing development was also being reduced to 200 units to accommodate families. That is my report. If there are any questions, I'd certainly entertain.
Does anyone have any questions of Director Edwards about the CAP report? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So now I'm going to move on to Director Lewis, who will be giving the report on the Crash Advisory Committee. Director Lewis?
Well, thank you, Director Simmons, and congratulations again on
Thank you.
your new position as our president.
Thank you.
The TriMet Crash Advisory Committee is tasked with reviewing and understanding crashes that involve TriMet revenue vehicles that result in injury or fatality and how those crashes can be avoided. This committee was established in 2019 by the Oregon legislature. The 7-member committee first met in May of 2020, and last year we welcomed 2 new members to fill vacancies, Hal Cagdon and Barry Lundberg. I recently replaced Director Linda Simmons as the board representative for this committee and had the great opportunity to attend, the May 13th meeting with her to meet the members and to see the format of this committee. During this fiscal year, TriMet held 2 3-hour orientation sessions for committee members on 12 topics, a few of them being reviewing the agency's safety plan, the new hire training program, state and federal safety reporting requirements, and a tour of the operational command center and an opportunity to operate the bus simulator. I'll be having fun on the bus simulator, and you too, Thomas, sometime in the fall. These orientation sessions ensure that committee members understand the existing TriMet programs and policies related to safety. The committee held its regular meetings in November of last year, and again, as I mentioned earlier, in May of 2021, and reviewed 10 crashes during those meetings. The committee is currently evaluating potential recommendations for the general manager, and the next meeting is coming up in the fall of this year. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Lewis. And do any of the board members have any questions for Director Lewis? Very good report. Thank you so much. Very thorough. Now I'd like to ask Vice President Lori Irish Bauman to provide an update on the Finance and Audit Committee that just met this morning before the board meeting. Director
Yes,
Irish Bauman.
yes, I'm here.
There you-
Good morning, everyone. The Finance and Audit Committee did meet this morning, just before the general board meeting. There were just 2 items on the agenda, but it was a fully packed hour of information. The first was a report by Kara Fitzpatrick, the Director of Financial Services, and Ashley Ostin of Moss Adams, regarding the new GASB 87 lease reporting requirements. So this is kind of down in the weeds on accounting standards. It's a standard for accounting for all leases that now must be reported on balance sheets. The requirement becomes effective in a year, but TriMet has taken the initiative to implement the standard 1 year early for fiscal year 2021. We heard that staff has reviewed over 80 agreements to determine whether they are leases, which position TriMet holds on the lease, and other details. There's detailed math behind the GASB relating to such issues as calculating present value of each lease and how to amortize each lease and report that amortization. So that very detailed and extensive work has been done by TriMet staff. We also heard about how auditors check on this reporting, and we heard specifically from our auditor that we are lucky, TriMet is lucky to have a great in-house team that's taken on this work and has adopted the standards early. So we're really pleased to hear this positive report about the efforts that have gone into updating our financial reports. The second report was on our transit-oriented development efforts. This was a quarterly update from Lance Ers and Guy Ben. We heard about the Fuller Road Station in Clackamas County, where there's construction is underway for 100% affordable housing units adjacent to the Fuller Road Max Station. We heard about the Hollywood Transit Center, and Director Edwards alluded to that project as well. Design work is ongoing, and there are applications for Metro Affordable Housing Bond funding. We heard about area plans associated with the Better Red project. We also heard about efforts to develop a TOD work plan that's going to be kind of a template going forward for TOD development. And finally, we heard about construction at Southwest 18th and Salmon, a residential project with 182 units on a former TriMet parking lot. So that's a really positive contribution to the housing stock in downtown Portland. And it was great to hear that's being completed. And that is the end of the Finance and Audit Committee report.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Director Bauman? I must say, I found that I actually listened to that report as well, and I mean I was in the meeting as well, and it was really exciting news. And I would encourage General Manager DeSue to have a briefing for the full board on our efforts and the status of our efforts on transit-oriented development. It's very exciting. Moving on, if there are no questions, I'll ask Director Wade to present the report first on the Metro Policy Advisory Committee meeting, and then eventually she'll also present the report on the Transit Equity Advisory Committee. You get 2 reports today.
I'm so lucky.
You're such a busy board member.
Yes. Well, hello, good morning, everyone, and congratulations, Dr. Simmons, on your new role, and Director Kim, congratulations as well. Really looking forward to serving with you on the board. Director Simmons is right. I do have 2 reports, and that's because I'm transitioning out of MPAC and heading into TIAC. So first, starting with MPAC, there were 2 main items that was discussed. The first, we heard a presentation from the Port of Portland regarding their seismic resilient runway discussion. Port of Portland staff presented to MPAC their response and resilience approach over the last year, and more specifically around seismic resilience. A seismic resilience runway would be able to withstand the ground motion and shaking of a major Cascadia subduction zone earthquake. The intent would really be to focus on protecting the south runway, which is further from the river. The project, unfortunately, does not qualify for a specific grant from the federal administration, although this may change in the future. And even with the funds, they're abbreviated for short, it's AIP funds, they would not fully cover the cost of the project. And so staff is really hoping to get more region-wide support, and they are also asking for Congress for funds for this project. And as you can imagine, if in the unfortunate event that we are hit with an earthquake, we need to be ready and we need to be prepared in our region. So this is pretty significant. The second topic included a wonderful panel of housing advocates and providers around really addressing and breaking down barriers to affordable housing. So those panelists consisted of REACH CDC staff, Hacienda CDC, the Housing Authority of Clackamas County, BNSTAR, and Marnella Homes. And just a few takeaways from this discussion. It's really just to provide more housing at all income levels, including middle income housing. And we know that the region is just facing an affordable housing crisis. And so this was an expert panel on how do we continue to build more affordable housing in the region. There is also an optic of how expensive affordable housing, building affordable housing can be. And then folks have noted that it also takes some time to get through the planning and the approval process, and that could be quite lengthy. One of the other barriers is having assets to fund the project, as well as partnering with financial institutions. So there was a lot of great information from that panel, and I also raised TriMet's work around TOD and how, as a transit provider, we're also making some headway to make sure that more folks in our region have affordable housing options as they're also taking transit. And then I was going to, I don't know if Director Kim would like to do this. I know that he'll be taking over from me on MPAC, but there are 2 agenda items as a preview for this upcoming meeting. So I don't know if Director Kim, do you want me to mention that, or do you want to?
Would you please? And of course, starting tonight's MPAC meeting, I'll be attending and fully taking over starting next board meeting. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, no problem. So the next meeting for MPAC will cover 2 things: a supportive housing services update. This was a measure that voters had approved to really address chronic homelessness in the region. And it is funded by 2 separate taxes. So first, a 1% personal income tax on taxable income above $125,000 for individuals and $200,000 for those filing jointly, and a 1% business income tax on net income for businesses with gross receipts above $5 million. This is really the first program at Metro that uses personal and business income taxes, and it is the first local personal income tax in the region since Multnomah County's personal income tax ended in 2006. Tax collections began in April of 2021, and through June 2021, over $1.5 million have been already collected. And of that, $1.2 million has been distributed to local implementation partners in Clackamas, Washington, and Multnomah County. And again, the overall goal of this is to really address and end homelessness in our region. The second point is a legislative update. So Metro staff will be sharing their recent legislative highlights from this past session, which will include transportation, housing, land use, recycling, and other important topics. And as Director Kim mentioned, he will be taking over MPAC. So really looking forward to the continuing work of our involvement in that committee. So before I go to TIAC, any questions? I know that was a lengthy MPAC report.
Are there any questions for Director Way? It was really informative. Thank you so much.
Yes, I have a question. In the work that's going to be done around the homeless, helping them, is there a plan that's available to the public to see how they plan on going about this and administering the plan, and how the plan is going to be implemented?
Yes, Director Edwards, that's an excellent question. So I will direct folks to check out Metro's website. If you go on their website, it's called the Supportive Housing Services Measure, and they have a whole implementation plan that has been submitted by the committee, and you can look at the progress as well as the timeline for everything. So Metro has done a really great job of providing just oversight and transparency so that folks can really track this progress. So I would encourage folks to check out the website, and there might be some staff members from Metro here too listening in, and they can also certainly follow up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Director Way? Hearing none, I'll ask you to then move on to the TIAC committee. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Yes. TIAC, yes, well, Director Gonzalez had just done an amazing job over the last year serving on TIAC, and so I will be taking over, and I'm excited to join my first meeting in August. Just a quick summary of the July meeting. Staff provided an update in partnership with the Oregon Health Association. TriMet partnered with 83 community-based organizations to provide over 30,000 day passes to help community members get to and from COVID vaccine appointments and clinics across the region. And the transit-oriented development team also discussed a facilitated session around the Hollywood project that many of us have already heard in our various committees, so received some feedback on that. TIAC members also received an invitation from Lisa Strader, who is the PBOT ADA coordinator, to a July City Council public hearing. It's an invitation to review and adopt the PBOT ADA Title II Public Right-of-Way Transition Plan. Staff also provided an update and discussed TIAC areas of interest in the coming year through a survey. And the initial results show that TIAC members would like to see the agency pursue more community partnerships and fair support. About half of the TIAC members have completed the survey, and staff are working to gather feedback from additional TIAC committee members to really plan the work ahead for the next year. And then finally, staff shared an updated timeline on the FAIRS Subsidy Research Project and asked for volunteers to help grade the potential proposals that should be available for review in late August. And overall, it was a great conversation, great participation, and the next meeting is August 10th. And I will just also say that I've also been meeting with John Gardner, who heads our equity work in the agency, as well as looking forward to just connecting more with TIAC members as I get started. So
Very
that's
good.
all I have for the report.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Director Way?
No questions on my side. Just a brief thank you, Director Way, for stepping in and helping represent as liaison with TIAC. It's a great group of people, and I couldn't be more thrilled that they get to collaborate with you and you with them.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So now it's our turn to hear from our general manager for the monthly report. General Manager Dessou, it's your time.
Well, good morning, President Simmons and members of the board, staff, and the public. Just thank you all for being here this morning. President Simmons, I just want to let you know that, first of all, I feel like one of the luckiest persons in the United States to work for a very diverse board that's diverse and inclusive. And I just want to tell you how lucky I am to be part of TriMet. So thank you all. First, I want to address, before I go into the update, I want to address the New Flyer issue that Hector brought forward. Want to let all of you know on the board that we currently have no purchase plans to buy buses from New Flyer. So we have no purchase plans at the current moment. And as you stated, President Simmons, we will look into the issues that he brought forward. So we'll take care of that. So this morning, I will be sharing timely information with you on our COVID-19 pandemic, our June ridership report. We will review the Safety and Security Division's annual report, and I will touch on the experience that we had during this historic heat wave in late June. And then finally, we will introduce you to one of our many unsung heroes at TriMet, a assistant supervisor, actually, with our facilities team, who showed outstanding commitment and dedication during the extreme heat. So let me start off first with the COVID update. We do not have a lot of new developments right now to report this morning on COVID. However, we are watching the impact of the Delta variant right now, especially with cases edging higher across Oregon. We will continue to look to the expertise of the Oregon Health Authority and also the CDC. We're taking precautions right now when and where appropriate to be safe and prevent the spread of the virus. That includes the federal requirement that riders and employees wear masks while riding buses and trains, and also at transportation hubs. I've heard from our customer service team that received calls and contacts about the mask requirement that the calls have declined over the last several weeks. We still have free masks on board our vehicles for anyone who need them. I also should note that early data suggests that riders are returning to the system as we move forward. So kind of transitioning into our June 2021 ridership report, June was the highest recorded month on TriMet system since March of 2020. Our system-wide ridership provided nearly 3.587 million rides. That breaks down to an average of about 842,000 rides per week. That's up 20% over June of 2020, but it's down 56% compared to pre-pandemic ridership or 2019. So to take a look at this by mode, our bus ridership increased nearly 30% since this time last year. Our max ridership increased about 6%, and then we saw no change on WES. So I'm going to pause here. I want to transition over to our Safety and Security Annual Report, and I would like to invite Executive Director of Safety and Security, Marla Blagg, to present the annual report from the Safety and Security Division. This report here is the past fiscal year, so FY21. So I'll just go ahead and turn it over to you, Marla. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam. Good morning, Ms. Board, President Simmons. I will be providing a very high-level report, a brief of the FTA and state reporting oversight reportable items. And these are accidents that result in severe outcomes. And next slide, please. So our count and outcomes for the 2020 calendar year, we had 101 reportable events and hazards. 13 were reported as severe outcomes, 2 were fatalities, 3 serious injuries, with 8 significant property damages. ODOT has specific event categories, and if the incident does not fall into that category, then we would denote it under a severity of outcome. So it quantifies that outcome. In general, things like serious injury means broken bones and internal damage, burns to the body, and amputations. Next slide. A total of 35 train collisions met reporting criteria in one or more of the reporting categories, which is down from 39 from last year. One involved another TriMet vehicle, a bus, which occurred in the Central Business District at low speed and resulted in minor damage. 24 involved a motor vehicle within a grade crossing, and all of those were passenger vehicles. 10 involved a person or bicyclist, 8 were pedestrians, 2 were bicyclists, and of these, 1 resulted in a fatal injury and 1 resulted in a serious injury based on what was ascertained at the time. Next slide. Looking at comparing our data year to year over the last 5 years, the data points do show a trending downward since 2016. So this is good news. Next slide. It is of no surprise that the Central Business District has a larger number of collisions due to the dynamic operational environment with other types of traffic. While we do see more collisions, the good news is that we do operate at a lower speed, and these are generally low or no severity incidents. Burnside does have roadway separation, but there is significant amount of vehicles with left turn intrusions. We do see many driver areas in our right-of-ways from left turn intrusions, such as Holiday and 6th or 11th, which prohibits left turns at Holiday and Grand, crossing in front of our trains against a red on a one-way. So it's confusing for our drivers. Next slide. It is important to understand the operational environments that our light rail vehicles do operate in. Some of the trackway is protected by fencing, restricted traffic, transit vehicle only areas or street running protected areas, gated crossings, curbing, lane striping, ballast and non-ballast trackways. This particular slide denotes all of the incidents or collisions in the downtown area. The trains in this area do not have the same protections as our other areas on our system and are running an embedded track, which can easily be intruded by not only vehicles, but pedestrians. It is important that safety tracks these stations to see what, if any, additional mitigations may arise in the near future. Our 6th Avenue sees an increased amount of tail swing collisions at the north end due to train movement on Irving. So while we can't really change that dynamic environment that they are working in, we can always look to see if there's ways to mitigate with signage or other striping. Next slide. TriMet's Rail Incident Review Board examines train accidents and incidents to determine if the operator could likely have prevented the event by using defensive operator strategies and techniques. The board found that of the majority of collisions, the rail operator could not have avoided the collision. In most of the events, the rail operator had too little time to react. Next slide. Based on the direction from the CPC and as part of the fiscal year 21 budget, the project will advance physical safety enhancements to another grade crossing. Well, I'm not going to focus a lot on the rail pedestrian safety initiatives. I do want to let the board know that we are prioritizing all of the rail pedestrian safety initiatives moving forward. Our safety and security initiatives for 2021, we are completing this at-grade crossing study and risk ranking model to help define which rail pedestrian crossings we should prioritize for funding in the near future. The methodology and efforts will continue to fiscal year 21. This is a new initiative, and we're actually partnering with one of Qatar with research to determine if our risk ranking tool will be replicable to all other transit agencies across the nation. Director Lewis had also given an update around the Crash Advisory Committee, and that will be an initiative that will carry on through the next year. And Safety Management System. This is the new initiative that we have changed from a system safety plan to an agency safety plan, focusing on behavior change in the work environment to reduce workplace injuries. The Safety Management System, as the board recalls, in October of last year, the board approved our new agency safety plan, or PTASP, what it was called before, PTASP, so now agency safety plan. Staff at the safety program is working really hard to develop an implementation plan to roll out the safety management system agency-wide. Recently, TriMet was highlighted at an APTA conference showcasing our efforts around safety management system and how we're proposing rolling out this agency safety plan with our ODOT partners, our state safety oversight partner. So we will be working heavily in this next year, working on that implementation and rollout. Next slide. In our security program, well, the board is very aware of our Reimagine Public Safety initiatives for the security program. We will be coming back to the board with our Reimagine Public Safety highlights and updates for you at a separate board meeting. But I do want to highlight that the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office is our new command agency leading our transit police efforts. All of our law enforcement partners have signed their intergovernmental agreements, and we are working on signing a new intergovernmental agreement with Washington County Sheriff's Office to provide behavioral health care, mental health crisis team to Washington County. So we're very excited about that coming forward, and we hope to have that team hitting the ground very soon. We're also working with our unarmed security personnel, which is our G4S and our PPI contracts. For the board's awareness, G4S will be having a name change, and it will be Allied Security. I think there was an ownership change with G4S. And so you may find some changing in the nomenclature of the naming of those contracts in the future. And I just want you to know that it's the same staff and that there's no staffing changes. It's just the company name change. Our other programs that we have in the security program is our code compliance program, which is our customer safety supervisors. We have an emergency management program, and we do have a new emergency manager, Ian Stewart, who joined us earlier this year. And Ian has hit the ground running and started his first day on the job was, I think, our winter storm. And so he has dealt with winter storms, extreme heat, and COVID all at one time. Welcome, Ian, to what a great challenge emergency managers have. Training drills and exercises will be in the new coming year, and we hope to roll out incident command system classes for any person in TriMet who wants to join those classes. Our physical infrastructure protection system has been upgraded. We've upgraded our cameras, we've upgraded some of the technology, and I hope the board will be able to join us at our public safety office soon where you can tour the Security Operations Center and be able to see these new upgraded technology that we brought into the CCTV program, access and key control, and also our other physical infrastructure protection systems include fencing, intrusion detection, alarms. And our new initiative coming forward is we will be doing extensive studies of crime prevention through environmental design at 3 of our transit centers to see if there's ways to create new treatments and environmental treatments for our riders so they feel safer in those environments, such as improving the lighting in the area so you don't have dark pockets at night, so people feel safer approaching our transit centers. Next slide. Here is our activity report for our proof of payment activity. In 2020, we had over 12,000 warnings issued, significantly up from the previous year, and fare citations issued 3,180, significantly down from the previous year. And this was due to COVID. So 80% less fare citations from fiscal year 2019, 361 increase in warnings due not to cite, but educating and informing our riders. There was 97% less citations resolved through administrative options in fiscal year 2019. The increase in warnings are a result of behavior change model and COVID. We pushed out warnings issued for first offense violations in an effort to gain cooperation in providing identification. The result of no law enforcement support in obtaining identification. So as we know, we have not had our law enforcement partners participate with our fare missions. So our fare inspectors have used more of a cooperation method to try and gain information from our riders. Education over enforcement approach was during all of COVID impacts. Next slide. This chart denotes the number of assaults on employees, supervisors, and contractors on our system. I know there's been a lot of emphasis about operator assaults, but all of our employees are at risk to assaults on the system. And the data is compiled through our accident incident database, and you can see there is a significant trend upwards. We have seen this result due to a lot of, I think, a lot of non-presence of other riders on our system. People feel more safe on our system when there's more riders present. And if you are alone and you don't have that protection, sometimes it can put you in a dangerous situation. So we always like high visibility presence of our staff. We like a lot of presence of our riders. And with having the amount of ridership decline, we seem to see more of these incidents rise. Next slide. Other security initiatives that we have for fiscal year 21, we really are focusing on behavior change. We will continue doing the warnings and education for the first offense violations during this time of COVID and for the remainder of this year. We're hoping to reduce operator assaults. All of our staff that are frontline staff out on the system are really working to try and educate and create better behavior of our riders so that our operators and our employees are not assaulted. And obviously, riders feel safe when staff are present, as I mentioned. Therefore, we are focusing on efforts to increase staff presence, which is a combination of TriMet staff and security staff. We have expanded our annual training and recertification to include the reimagined public safety recommendations for security and frontline staff, and that includes bias busting at work, unconscious bias, emotional intelligence, mental health first aid, and microaggressions. Next slide, please. And that concludes my report, and I would be happy to entertain any questions.
Do any of the speakers have questions for Marla Bragg? Kathy?
Yes,
Director Wade?
Marla.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Marla, for the presentation. I thought it was very thorough. I just have two questions. The first question is around the unarmed unit that we're using to provide more safety to our riders. Do they carry business cards on them or just ID in case someone has an issue and they want to report it to TriMet for further remediation or assistance? I know that the armed officers carry that, so I was just wondering for the sake of customer service and experience.
That's a great question, Director Way. I'm not sure if my security director is on the line, Pat Williams or Justin Dillon. Are you on the line where you can answer that question? If not, we'd be happy to get that response to you by the end of the day.
Sure, that would be helpful. And then just my second question was around the reimagining security, safety, that work that obviously put a lot of work and effort last year in building that up. And just wondering how, and I'm sorry if you've already mentioned this, but just how that work or, that committee will continue to provide either guidance or oversight or whatever it is to the safety and security work.
Yes, thank you. So Marissa Clark is our new Senior Community Engagement Coordinator who will be coordinating the efforts for the Community Advisory Committee. It's my understanding that recruitment is underway right now, and we are looking to identify partners in the 3-county region who are doing this work so that we're not duplicating efforts and that we can actually leverage our resources and work together. As you know, we are not social service workers or experts in this area. So we were really looking towards getting the subject matter experts to join us and to guide us and to advise us. So we're looking forward to having, hopefully, fingers crossed, the new first meeting in fall of this year.
Perfect. And so have committee members, they have already been selected and they're ready to go in the fall, or are you still looking to recruit folks to join?
I believe the recruitment is still open and we welcome anybody to apply. And I believe there's additional information on the Reimagine Public Safety website on our TriMet webpage where you can apply. If you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to me directly and I'd be happy to provide more information, such as what the application process is.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Any further questions? Thank you, Marla.
Thank you all.
So Marla, thank you. As we come back, Director Wade, just want to let you know as well, we will be giving the board a full update in September on the Reimagine public safety. So we'll be coming in front of the board and kind of putting everything on the table and laying everything out. So Marla, just want to thank you for all the efforts that the division has done over the last 12 months. So really, really appreciate that. All right, so wanted to kind of transition over into the historic heat wave that we faced. Late last month, TriMet and the region experienced the highest temperatures ever recorded. This extreme heat pushed our system to the breaking point, and we had no choice but to temporarily suspend service for about 2.5 days on the MAX system. We could not safely run trains with the unprecedented heat temperatures, which caused the overhead wires to sag down. It stressed our rail equipment and our trains, as well as our buses and the cooling systems at our facilities. As you know, it melted a power cable on the Portland streetcar system, forcing streetcar service to be disrupted as well. So systems here in the Pacific Northwest, they are built to typical medium temperature ranges. And climate change has now exceeded those temperature ranges. So I want to let you know what we're doing. We are undertaking a study on what can be done to make our system more climate resilient. And that will include really connecting with our partner transit agencies and other traditionally hotter climates, talking with them. Internally, I'm assembling a task force to work on this issue, to be able to identify our risks and vulnerabilities, both as an agency and also as a community partner that's committed to equity. We will include members of our executive team, board, our staff, our engineering, and also our sustainability team, which is made up of passionate staff members from various divisions within TriMet. I'm also grateful I had a chance this week to talk to President Simmons and Vice President Bauman. And then I had a conversation with Director Gonzalez and Edwards. They've offered their expertise in this area as we plan to report back to the board with an action plan here in the latter fall to winter. We'll be updating you as we learn more. So more to follow there. Speaking of the heat wave, I do want to, in public, recognize and thank the many TriMet employees who went above and beyond during the heat wave event. So many went the extra mile to help keep our riders and our co-riders and our equipment safe. One of those employees is Assistant Supervisor Paul Morris, who works in our facilities division. I've asked Facilities Director Karen Powell to come in and share with you Paul's actions during this historic heat wave. Oh, Paul's here, and turn it over to Karen. Karen?
Thank you very much, Mr. General Manager, Madam President, and members of our Board of Directors. It is my great privilege and my pleasure to be here with you this morning to help you learn and get to know Mr. Paul Morris and the many contributions that he makes every day at TriMet. I am sorry that you can't see the smile on my face through my mask, but I hope that you can hear it in my voice. Paul is here with me. Paul has been with us in his role as a maintenance mechanic for over 25 years. For almost the last 5 years, he has fulfilled the leadership role of assistant supervisor for Zone 5, which operates out of Ruby South, where we're speaking to you from now. And Paul has been exemplary in his leadership and consistent throughout his long tenure with TriMet. Paul's commitment to keeping our operations running is tremendous. When I first saw Paul after the Heat Dome event and was visiting with him and thanking him for his extraordinary efforts, he shared with me that not only was he up on a white reflective roof at the peak of the heat, clocked at 116, and if you can imagine how the heat bounces off of that white reflective roof, we figure it's at least 20 degrees hotter because of that than the ambient temperature. And Paul and members of his crew, Antonio Morales here at Ruby, Joe Robideau was over on the west side doing the same thing, up on the roof with hoses, trying to cool down our struggling equipment so that it would continue to particularly cool the servers that run our backup command center. One of the big concerns in the Heat Dome event was power outages. And if there were an outage at center, we would have to operate transportation here at Ruby. And our equipment is very aged, as much of our equipment is, and is not as reliable as we need it to be in this kind of an event. And if you can imagine our folks up in that heat on that roof, literally nursing it along to keep transportation going and to keep our occupants safe and comfortable, I know you will join me in commending Paul for his tremendous efforts. He shared with me that he had worked 13 of the last 14 days when I visited him after that event. I wish that were more unusual. I'm afraid that's quite common. We're short-staffed on our mechanics, and many, many times they give up their weekends and their days off and their time with their families and loved ones in order to be available to come back sometimes time and time again, night and day. I know that Paul came not just once a day over the Heat Dome weekend, he came many times a day and at night. So please join me in recognizing Paul and his leadership on behalf of all of our maintenance mechanics and assistant supervisors who show up for us and keep things going and keep folks safe every day.
Thank you.
Did you want Paul to say a few words, Sam?
Yeah, please, absolutely. Let me just say here to Paul is that I like to personally thank you for your hard work as well, your attention to detail and your commitment to safety, despite the challenging conditions that you face. So bravo to you, sir. Absolutely bravo. So would love for you to say a few words, and then I would love to turn it over to the board if they had comments as well.
Well, thank you very much, Sam. Like Karen says, I've been here for quite a long time now. I got hired as a maintenance electrician off the street as a journeyman. Never been through any other program. Facilities is all I've known, all I've ever done. Back in 1996, when I got hired, we had a very, very smaller TriMet. And we still had the same type of zone structure, except it was bus and rail. Well, then we merged together, and it brought us with 24 plant mechanics back in 1999, which in 1999 we didn't have the green line and the orange line and the downtown and all the different parking garages and all the different buildings and crew rooms. And today at this time, we've only got 16 plant mechanics. So it makes it harder not only to try to keep the aging infrastructure running. Some of the chillers and the condensing units and the air handlers are even actually older than the time I've been here. So it makes it really hard, especially when these type of events. But you know, we do all we can. We do the best we can. Like Karen says, a lot of times we have to work. We don't have to, but we do because we know what it takes to keep our employees or our fellow workers comfortable in these situations. They rely on us. So it's really hard to do. And you know, I'd like to see some improvement in some of those areas as far as getting new equipment for some of this old stuff, and maybe getting a little more help to make our department able to handle all these inspections and things that aren't getting done due to lack of manpower.
Thank you. Board members, was anyone like to make a comment?
This is Lori. I'll start. Paul, I just want to say thank you. First of all, thank you for making the board aware of the infrastructure issues you've just described about some of the aged equipment, and also we are aware of the staffing shortages, and we hope that some of the recent steps are going to alleviate those problems. But it's so helpful for the board to hear this directly from somebody who with such long experience. But I also want to say that you know, thank you for your actions above and beyond the call of duty during that heat dome event. It's not the type of thing I'm sure that you could have trained for. I'm sure you based on your years of experience, you had to improvise and you know, figure out the next steps just to keep the system operating. So I am just so grateful to you and just really in awe of how you were able to use your all the skills you've gained over the years to keep the system running. And I just on behalf of the public, I do want to thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments from board members?
I just want to thank you, Paul, as well, for because you know, having not have that particular experience, but being out there when things go south on you, and you got to try to figure out how to keep things working and making sure that you know, you're safe while doing it. So I just thank you for all the work and innovation that you provided in making that happen. So thank you again.
Thank you, sir.
Ozzy, did I hear your voice?
Yes, I'd love to add a few words. Thank you, President Simmons. I would love to add a few words here. Paul, thank you so much for sharing your story today. I know that climate resilient infrastructure is a big fancy word, but you show us that behind that, there's a whole lot of stick-to-itiveness, a lot of just human ingenuity, a lot of basic get the job done, figure out what needs to happen at moments. And, you know, despite all the bells and whistles of infrastructure, at the end of the day, it's, you know, folks like yourself, Paul, getting up, looking at stuff, figuring things out, communicating with the team that really keeps us running. And thank you for getting it back to that level and showing that, you know, to do this right. It's a great example that you share, because this isn't the job description every day, but you have to figure out how to fill in those gaps. And so you're a testament, frankly, to what it takes to serve the public and to, you know, get out of our own bubbles when we need to figure out these new problems, because we're seeing these problems more and more. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.
Director Lewis?
Oh, thank you, Paul. I'd just like to echo the special words of my colleagues on your generous time that you have served here with TriMet, especially your dedication and just the brilliance of stepping in, stepping up, and stepping forward. On behalf of the public and TriMet, thank you.
Thank you.
Paul, it's apparent that you're one of the backbones of the TriMet operation. So thank you. And thank you for making time to come chat with us. We really appreciate your time as well for today. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
You know, I would just like to echo the comments that other board members have shared. Oftentimes, I think the public has, and as well as board members, don't understand the complexity of what it takes for the agency to run every day. And so your coming and the recognition you've received has also helped us to understand some of the complexities that it takes to keep this agency going in some of the more extreme circumstances, you know, heat, cold, regular days, and everything. There's just so many people that really make a very complex organization work. On behalf of the community, and your support for your colleagues and the agency is just greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
President Simmons, may I make one final closing remark, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Bauman's comments reminded me that I was remiss in failing to mention one of the highlights of the events of that very challenging event. And you may have seen General Manager Dessou's email last week recognizing the innovation of our trainer, Keith Vitko. Keith had recognized that this equipment is at the end of its useful life and likely to fail, and had started to strategize creative implementations that we might consider to continue to extend its useful life. And that was a critical part of the success of that heat dome event, and Paul played a huge role in that. And that involved devising a misting system that would continually mist this equipment, which really did go very far in keeping it operational, in addition to getting up on the roof and hosing things down. So I'm sorry that I failed to mention that earlier, but I think it's important for the board to realize how committed our folks are and how much time they spend researching and thinking proactively about how to keep this equipment that is at the end of its useful life going. And we're just very fortunate that it all came together just before the heat dome event, and we were able to implement that and utilize that to keep things operational. So thank you again for your time this morning and for your recognition of Paul and our entire team.
Great. Director Gonzalez, did you have another comment?
No, President Simmons, thank you.
Okay. We'll turn it back to you, Sam Dessou.
All right. Again, thank you, President Simmons and board, for your comments. Paul, just thank you, and we appreciate what you do for us. We all value you, so thank you very much. At this time, President Simmons, that concludes my report for this morning.
Very good. Thank you so much. I think it's now time for us to move into the consent agenda. And for those listening who aren't a part of the board, it's important to know that the consent agenda is considered items that are considered routine, and so that the board can approve them with just a blanket motion. So this morning's consent agenda only has the minutes from the last meeting, June 23rd, 2021. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Ozzy has approved a motion made, and is there a second?
Second.
Director Edwards is the second. So is there any comments or anything from the board? Any edits that need to be made?
This is Director Kim. I'll be abstaining from voting on this since I was not participating in that meeting as a board member. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Hearing none, then all in favor, would you please say aye?
Aye.
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 And opposed? And then your abstention.
Here.
Okay, so the motion carries. So we're now going to move into the resolutions. And our first business resolution is Resolution 21-07-39, requesting that the TriMet Board of Directors adopt an amendment to the HR Policy 4.4, TriMet's Criminal Records Policy. Mr. General Manager, your comments?
Thank you, President Simmons. Members of the board, Oregon law requires TriMet to conduct criminal records checks of job applicants and employees who transport passengers or have access to safety and security sensitive information and facilities. And the law requires our criminal records policy to be adopted by a resolution of the board of directors. Our Human Resources Division discovered a gap in our current criminal records policy concerning outstanding warrants for arrest of job applicants and employees, and this resolution is necessary to close that gap. Just as the original policy was required to be adopted by the board, this amendment to the policy must be adopted by the board. The amendment would allow TriMet to decline to hire a job applicant when a criminal record check finds an active warrant for arrest within any jurisdiction. It would also allow TriMet to suspend a current employee from employment if the employee is found to have an active warrant for arrest from any jurisdiction. The actual amendment is shown on page 6 of the criminal records policy, which is attached as Exhibit A to the resolution. This amendment is the only change to the policy being requested at this time. Your approval is recommended. Here we have Executive Director of HR and LR, Kim Sewell. Any questions? And our Deputy General Counsel, Ankur, is here. Doshi is here to assist us as well.
Okay. Before we go into discussion, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
This is Lori, so moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Laverne seconds.
Thank you. And now for discussion. Any discussion or questions for either General Counsel or Human Resources?
I just have a quick question.
Yes.
And sorry, everyone, I can't see other hands. My question was, so for under jurisdiction, I'm assuming that's all jurisdictions in Oregon. Does that apply to out-of-state active warrants as well?
I'm going to assume it does. This is Kim Sewell, Director Way, but Ankur Doshi, who drafted the amendment, is probably closer to this issue. And if he's available to answer that, I will defer to him, but I do assume it means any jurisdiction within the United States.
Kim, this is Ankur. Yes, it does. include any jurisdiction. The particular issue that led to proposing this amendment was actually a warrant that was issued out of state that has showed up on our criminal records report. Since we do an FBI criminal records report, it will pull warrants from any state that has issued one against the particular applicant.
Thank you for the explanation. I saw the notes in our board packet, and I'm just pleased to hear that this doesn't have a budget impact, and also does not seem to have an impact around our just diversity and equity and recruitment efforts. So thank you for bringing this.
Director Edwards, did you have a question?
Yes. Thank you. I guess I would like to know how this works as well. And is it just to be in compliance with the ORS, or is it because we've had this particular incident that's prompted this?
I'm going to yield to our general counsel on this.
This is Shelley, and I'll just jump in. I know Ankur can add to this, but this isn't prompted by the statute requirement. It's what we caught when we had this issue come up. And we realized that there was a gap between our policy and what we wanted to do going forward. Is that right, Ankur?
That's correct, Shelley. And I should add that this is a pretty rare occurrence. And part of the reason that I requested this be added to amend the policy is that in about the 7 or 8 years that I've been working with criminal background checks, both in TriMet as well as my previous positions outside of TriMet, this has only come up once, because generally applicants who are applying for positions usually do not have outstanding warrants. So this was, when it did come up, there was a lot of questions brought up to legal about what exactly to do with this particular situation, because our resolution only really covers convicted crimes and doesn't cover warrants. That's why providing this will help to provide our human resources group with guidance as they pursue this, especially since this is something that does not come up that frequently.
I guess that's the concern that I have, is that the same one that Director Way raises, that oftentimes these records may not be accurate, or they may be somehow something that the individual may not be aware of. And I guess I get concerned because sometimes folks may, we may lose someone, an employee, and then they're gone. And then there was an error in the paperwork, or there was an error in the authority that issued the warrant to begin with. And is there an option for that person to get their job back?
So Director Edwards, I can address that, because we have had that issue come up in the past in other contexts, not necessarily in the warrant context that prompted this, but we do have a process and a procedure that we inform them of what we've found, and then they have an opportunity, if we're going to take any kind of a personnel action, they have an opportunity to appeal that personnel action. So yes, that we do have that in place, and that has been both successfully and unsuccessfully used in the past with applicants and employees.
Okay. Thank you.
Director Lewis?
Oh, no.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Well, if there are no more questions and discussion, and we've got a motion by Director Bauman and seconded by Director Lewis, I think it's time to move forward. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. All right. Moving on to our second resolution. This morning, it's resolution 21-07-40, requesting that the TriMet Board of Directors authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Raul V. Bravo plus associate for Type 2 and Type 3 light rail vehicle midlife overhaul, engineering, and inspection services. General Manager, your comments.
Thanks, President Simmons, members of the board. The purpose of this resolution is to select a firm to perform monitoring and inspection services for our overhaul of our Type 2s, Type 3 series light rail vehicles, our MAX trains. There are 79 MAX trains in this group that are receiving a midlife overhaul by the manufacturer Siemens. So far, TriMet has been performing the inspection services needed to monitor this work. And by the way, this is in Sacramento, California, that we have to send someone down and be there on the grounds. But as this work intensifies, we've recognized that we will need assistance to keep the process on track. TriMet issued a request for proposal and selected committee debated between three very competitive firms. Although all three bidders were close, Raul V. Bravo Associates was chosen as it scored higher than the others, especially on the technical aspects. The selection committee determined that it would provide the highest quality of service for this task. The proposed contract is a 4-year term with an option to extend up to 2 additional years. The maximum contract amount for all 6 years is $1.196 million, but could fall below that figure depending on TriMet's need for the services. The cost of the contract is included in the FY22 rail equipment maintenance operating budget. Raul V. Bravo Associates is a certified minority business enterprise in California and will seek DBE certification in Oregon as well. The company has about 62 employees, 45% identified as minorities, and more than 22% are women. Your approval is recommended. I have here interim COO Roland Hoskins, and also we have our manager over our engineering, Chris Gleason, is here to answer any questions.
Is there, oh, I don't know who was speaking.
I just finished.
Oh, okay. I heard another voice. Anyway, is there a motion to approve this resolution?
This is Kim. I move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Wait, second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I have a question. I noticed we have 3 bidders listed here. Did we receive 3 total bids, or were there more bids for this scope?
I'm going to go to Chris. Chris, are you the Roland? Are you there?
I'm available. Can you everyone hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
President Simmons and members of the board, good morning. I'm Chris Gleason, manager of TriMet's RMTS engineering support group. Mr. Gonzalez, board member, the answer to that question is there was an additional bid. They were excluded though due to the structure of their bid. There's 4 bids total, 4 proposals total.
Director Edwards, did you have a question?
Yes, you say there were, I guess I'm a little confused. There were 3 bidders, and there were actually 4 bidders, but one was excluded, and for a reason that you can't share here?
They were excluded to their proposal was considered non-compliant.
And you can't expound on that?
I can. I mean, you go into some detail about it. The structure of their proposal included things that were in the proposal package required to be left alone. They tried to make changes to some of our basic requirements for the proposal. They're considered non-compliant.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a contracting history with the proposed vendor, RVB and A?
We do as an agency. I don't personally.
Is there any more discussion?
I had a clarification question. General Manager Dessou, you mentioned with this particular vendor, they have operations in California and that we would have staff on site for some portion of this. I wasn't clear if you could elaborate. Are we on site throughout this 4-year term? Do we have or is there some sort of other sort of on-site presence?
Well, thank you, Director Gonzalez. So Chris is one of the folks that go down periodically and check on the inspections and the overhauls that's going on. We were sending down a maintenance personnel, and we were paying for a hotel, travel, food for that person to be able to look at the inspections. And we found that it was cost effective for us to find a organization that's located in that area or someone there that can do the inspections for us a little bit more cost effective.
Thank you.
So if there's, am I hearing, does anyone else have anything that they need to discuss? Hearing none, I'm going to call for the vote. Are all in favor? Please say aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to the third resolution, which is 21-07-41, authorizing a contract with Skyward Construction, Inc. for the Columbia Bus Base Materials Management Center remodel project. That's a mouthful. General Manager?
All right, thanks, President Simmons, members of the board. So the purpose of this resolution here is to request authorization of a contract with Skyward Construction, Inc. This contract will allow TriMet to complete a remodel of a portion of the 30-acre Columbia Base industrial property that we own. The Columbia Base bus base will be a future bus maintenance and transportation facility and is scheduled to be fully built over the next 10 years. The work under discussion today would allow for renovation of an existing 34,000 square foot warehouse on the property. The warehouse will be converted into the new materials management center that will become TriMet's primary storage and distribution facility for bus and train parts. TriMet issued an invitation to bid for this contract. Skyward produced the lowest responsive bid at $3.94 million, which came under TriMet's independent cost estimate for the work. The maximum amount of the 3-year contract will be for $4.55 million, which includes 15% for possible change orders. The amount of the contract is accounted for in the engineering, construction, and planning department budget for FY22. As for diversity, Skyward has 13 employees, 2 are whom are minorities, and 3 are women. The firm intends to use DBE firms as subcontractors for more than 20% of the work. This renovation is scheduled to be completed by the end of July 2024, and your approval of the resolution is recommended. So with me today to answer any questions is Executive Director Steve Witter.
Great. So board members, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
This is Kim. I move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, this is Lori.
All right. Any discussion?
Yes, I have a question, Director Simmons. Does this project fall under prevailing wage?
Let's go to Steve. Are you there, Steve?
Yes, I am here, Sam. Thank you. President Simmons, Director Edwards. I will get to your question in one moment. I'd just like to introduce actually the person that really could probably answer your question, which is our project manager, Karen Urata. She's done all of the work in this procurement along with our procurement team, and I'm hopeful that she can address your question here. If not, we can get it in writing. But Karen's been with us for several years. She's a licensed architect in the state of Oregon and Washington. And Karen, I believe you're on the line. I hope you have an answer for the director's question.
Good morning, TriMet board members. I actually will defer to Les Spittler. I do believe he is also on the line. This project ultimately will become buses. Les, are you available to answer the question?
Yeah, hi, good morning. The answer is yes, this is a prevailing wage job under the Oregon prevailing wage law.
Thank you for that. So that means that they, all the workers will be receiving prevailing wage to work on this, and that's including the subcontractors as well?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
I had a question, and since Mr. Spittler's still around, perhaps this is a question directed towards you. I noticed in Section 8, the diversity section, the recommended vendor Skyward Construction has not only provided demographic information about their company, but they actually have looks like some items itemized for specific subcontractors with some specific percent of contract. It's my assumption then that those entities are already baked into the proposal. Were they named in the proposal? Are they aware of these commitments as well? I don't know if any of that came up in the process. I only ask because I'm not used to seeing that level of information in a proposal at this stage.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Director Gonzalez. With a low bid, we require the prime contractor, who is the apparent low bidder, to submit documentation on their good faith effort outreach. So any trade or scope of work that they're not going to self-perform, they're required to conduct a good faith effort to find a certified firm to perform that work. So the companies that are named here as the certified subcontractors were reached out to and have committed their pricing to Skyward, and Skyward will be using them for those scopes of work and has incorporated their bids for the subcontract scope of work into their overall price.
Thank you. That sets a very fair level of expectation that these would move forward. I appreciate that.
I have one other question, and Ozzy probably should ask this question because he's probably more familiar than I am about the nuance of monthly reports on the personnel that are going to be working on this particular project for the general contractor. In other words, the classifications and the wages to make sure that they line up.
So we use a software system called LCP Tracker, which requires the prime contractor and subcontractors to basically enter their prevailing wage or certified payroll reports, and which are then verified by TriMet staff to ensure that they are in fact paying their employees the prevailing wage.
Does it also track the employee to make sure that I'm a journey level employee being paid journeyman wages as or an apprentice being paid apprentice wages?
It does. It tracks. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Les. I'll follow you.
It does. It tracks. It tracks if they're a journey level employee or an apprentice, and then the appropriate wage.
And Director Edwards, to ensure compliance and accuracy, I actually have a full-time staff member that supports TriMet in the certified payroll effort and does field visits, audits, and other checks to ensure that the tradespeople are paid properly.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your questions, Director Edwards and Director Gonzalez. If there's no more discussion, are we ready for the vote?
I do have one more point, if I may, President Simon. It's not a question, but I really want to point it out for the sake of the board and the public. I want to acknowledge, we have 3 vendors listed here. The recommended vendor clearly came in with a more competitive price. I'm glad to know that they're responsive. It's great to see the inclusion plan this well thought through. We do have in the midst some vendors here who have worked all with TriMet but are now coming in as a prime. O'Neill, who did not come in with the most competitive price, is a certified MBE here in Oregon, and I just wanted to make sure to point that out. Thank you to the public to the board for considering them. When we have as we have these sorts of vendors coming to us, I know that part of their success rate improves when they're able to see, what the competition is like and how bids come in. Do we have any interaction in the proposal or in the bidding process for people to review bids after the fact and get feedback from the project management team on how they did, frankly, so they could learn for the next round?
We do. We would. I mean, our typical protocol would be to encourage them to submit a public records request, and once they receive the information, we would be happy to sit down with them and go over their bid relative to the estimate or relative to the low bidder, to show the areas that maybe their assumptions were off or different than the low bidders. So there is that process, and we'd be happy to make it more announced and more readily available. But we typically wait for someone to request it.
Thank you so much. I really hope our supplier community takes us up on that. It's a fantastic way to really learn how to be more successful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, are we ready for the vote then? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. So now our last resolution for us today is 21-07-42, which is authorizing a contract with Trapeze Software Group for the paratransit scheduling software. Mr. General Manager.
Finally, this morning, President Simmons and members of the board, you have a resolution requesting authorization for a contract with Trapeze Software Group. The contract would cover the purchase of paratransit scheduling software licensing, as well as associated with maintenance fees for TriMet's Lyft paratransit operations. TriMet's Lyft program currently uses Trapeze software on a daily basis for customer data, reservations, scheduling, dispatching, and other important functions. Due to the proprietary nature of the technology, this is a sole source contract allowing for Lyft's continued use of the software license and maintenance. The contract has a maximum value of $1.36 million over 4 years. The first year of the contract amount is included in TriMet's IT budget for FY22 to avoid any interruptions or disruptions in service for our paratransit customer. I do recommend your approval on this. Also, I have with me our Chief Information Officer, Ethan Benettan, and the IT Director, AJ O'Connor, and the manager, Aftab, here to answer any questions.
Great. Do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
And okay, it's moved by Edwards and seconded by Gonzalez. And is there any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes,
Dr. Thank you. I didn't know whether where the TriMet software, where this provider was based. Are they in Oregon or where are they headquartered?
Ethan,
I can
I'll
answer
yield
that.
to you. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, General Manager DeSue. And I'm going to put our manager of Operations Control Center Systems, Aftab Zainuddin, on the spot, who is the expert on this software, and let him answer your questions. Aftab? Thanks, Ethan. Good morning, the board. Good morning, President and directors. I'm new to the board, so excuse me if I've started. And that being said, they are located in Toronto. They're a Canadian company. They have a North American office in North America, which is situated in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So they have two.
Great. And I guess I know that in the past, you know, we have heard some concerns around just paratransit, just accessibility needs of some of our customers that use that service. And I wasn't sure if that was also related to scheduling or just maybe issues that, you know, some of our writers had raised with not so much this particular company, but just with scheduling and making sure that they were getting picked up and dropped off on time, which again could be a software issue. But would you say that in terms of their customer service relationship and responsiveness to issues that you know, maybe TriMet has experienced before, do you feel like they are pretty responsive and are able to meet our needs? And especially, again, I'm thinking those are our writers who, you know, ultimately they're the end users of this software.
Yes, Director Wade, you bring up a very good point, and when I joined TriMet, so I'm a former Trapeze employee, and I'm not supporting Trapeze. I support TriMet as an employee here. My experience was the same as yours, and what happened? What happened? You're on, Aftab. We can hear you. Jeff, put up a slide. My computer just crashed. Can you hear me? We can hear you right now, and I can take over if we don't. I'm sorry. This is a bad time for a system to crash. Okay. Yeah. So that being said, we have partnered with Trapeze since I've started, and Eileen Collins and I think Margot Moore is online from the Lyft side of operations. Trapeze have stepped up with their service agreement and literally supported us turn around the relationship, the support, and also troubleshooting and helping us improve using their systems and also updating their systems since I've started with TriMet. So I feel confident that Trapeze can do the due diligence in supporting us from now onwards to the future. And Trapeze is indeed one of the best paratransit systems out in the industry. There are others, competitors, but they can't meet the trapeze technology, especially for paratransit. And that being said, I am confident on the supporting aspect of it. Trapeze have done a great job and doing a great job in keeping up their end of the bargain in supporting us. If that helps. Oh, go ahead. And if I may, President Simmons, I'd love to chime in a moment there as well.
Yes.
Our colleagues in Lyft have been working really closely with us in IT to plan out what they need from the technology in order to provide continued service improvements. So we have an ongoing collaboration, and I will say that Director Margot Moore and her staff in Lyft are aggressively pursuing wonderful improvements, and we are working together to both hold Trapeze's feet to the fire, which Aftab has been fantastic at because he knows where all their bodies are buried, and also to make sure that we're also looking at the competitive landscape. So this is something that we're very aware that the technology needs are going to be critical in supporting our Lyft riders, and it's a place where we're investing constantly. So I hope that answers your question. And then since I have the floor, if you would allow me the indulgence of one other employee I'd like to recognize very briefly, I would appreciate that.
Yes, please.
So today is Jeff Carroll's last meeting that he'll be supporting the board and TriMet with his WebEx expertise. He'll be leaving and moving on from TriMet. We will miss him. And I want to thank him for his seamless service. Jeff has actually, although when I first discovered his support of us in these kinds of meetings, I felt like he was a polished PR professional. It turns out he is a technical professional with deep expertise in communication systems, and this was just something he stepped into. So there will be a change of personnel. It might not be to quite the standards that Jeff has set for a little while, but we're working really closely with public affairs to make sure that these meetings are well supported. And so thank you, Jeff, for all you've done for us.
Yes.
Thank you, Ethan. I appreciate that.
And I can echo those comments. I've just so personally benefited from Jeff's assistance throughout since we've been online, and greatly appreciated it and gotten to know you, and so much wish you well in your next project.
Thank you, President Simmons.
I'd like to thank Jeff as well, but I have a question for you, Jeff. I appreciate all the support that you've given us and make these meetings certainly a lot smoother and a lot easier to navigate so that we get the information we need to make decisions, and I certainly appreciate that. But I guess my question is, how soon are you leaving, and are you going far, and did you train your replacement?
I am leaving on Friday. Training has been happening and is ongoing, and no, I'm not going very far.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Keith.
Are there any other is there any other discussion on this particular resolution? Hearing none, we're ready for the vote. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Well, that concludes all of the business coming before the board today. I want to thank you for your support, and this is my first meeting, and I'm learning the ropes of how to navigate this meeting, and I'm sure it'll get smoother in the times to come. Before we adjourn the meeting, I know some of you have probably wondered when we might actually resume meetings in person. And I want you to know that the staff are watching the COVID-19 pandemic issues closely, and with the governor's lifting restrictions and understanding that we're dealing with more in-person events individually, We're targeting our in-person meetings to begin with the October meeting. And so stay tuned. That's always subject to revision, but that's the plan at this particular time. So there's no more business briefing items on the agenda. There's no ordinances. So I'm going to adjourn the meeting, but also tell you that our next meeting, which is very soon, August 11th at 9 a.m., and will be online. And you may wonder, I know I mentioned to Director Kim, it's historic that a lot of people take vacations late in August, and so we've had an early board meeting. So we will meet early in August, and then our regular late September meeting as usual. So if there is any other business that needs to come just generally before the board, I will wish you all a good afternoon and
no business, but I just have a couple of comments.
Okay, all right.
I want to thank you, President Simmons. I think you ran a very good meeting today, and you did a good job navigating your way through this. It doesn't look like this is your first meeting, so thank you for that. And I would like to also welcome Director Kim, and hopefully we'll get the chance to get together so we can know each other better. So thank you very much for your commitment to be on the board and saying yes. And I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Director Bauman, did you have a comment?
I want to just jump in and join in congratulating Director Simmons on being the president of the board, and yeah, look forward to meeting Director Kim in person and working with him in the future as well.
Yes. All right. Well, with that, we'll say goodbye until August 11th. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Simmons. Thanks a lot.